The holographic display aboard the ESS Vindication cast an ethereal blue glow across Commander Sarah Chen's face as she studied the tactical overlay. Hundreds of green markers representing Earth's fleet moved in perfect formation through the void, while red markers indicating Zarkak's positions retreated further into their territory. After 50 years of preparation, humanity's revenge was unfolding with mechanical precision. Status report. Chen commanded, her voice steadied, despite the weight of history pressing down on this moment. All ships maintaining formation, Commander. Lieutenant Marcus Rivera responded from his station. The Zarkak's defense fleet continues their withdrawal toward Nexus Station Alpha. No signs of serious resistance yet. Chen's dark eyes narrowed. The lack of resistance troubled her more than any firefight would have. The Zarkak's empire had ruled this sector of space for millennia, their technological superiority unchallenged until they encountered Earth. Their initial dismissal of humanity as primitive mammals had been their first mistake. Their attempt to subjugate Earth had been their last. They're leading us into something, Chen mused, more to herself than her crew. Tactical, run another deep scan of the surrounding systems. Look for quantum signatures that might indicate cloaked vessels. The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements precise and practiced. They were the best Earth had to offer, chosen from billions to lead this mission of retribution. Each of them had lost someone during the first strike, when Zarkak ships appeared above Earth's major cities and demonstrated their power. The scanning results appeared on Chen's personal display. Nothing. No hidden fleets, no weapon emplacements, no obvious traps. Just the steady retreat of an empire that had never known defeat. Message from Fleet Command. Communications Officer Yuki Tanaka announced. They're forwarding intelligence from our deep cover operatives within Imperial space. The Zarkak's High Council is in emergency session. There appears to be significant discord among their leadership. Chen allowed herself a small smile. They're finally realizing that their primitive mammals have teeth. The tactical display updated again, showing the Zarkak's fleet accelerating suddenly. They were making a break for the Nexus Station, a massive space installation that served as one of the Empire's primary military hubs in this sector. All ships, battle stations, Chen ordered. They'll make their stand at the Nexus. That's where we'll find out if 50 years of preparation was enough. Warning klaxons sounded throughout the fleet as crews rushed to their combat positions. The Vindication's quantum engines hummed with power as they pushed to keep pace with the retreating enemy. Commander, Rivera called out, his voice tense. We're picking up energy signatures from the Nexus. They're powering up their primary weapon systems. Chen studied the readouts. The Nexus Station's defenses were formidable, or at least they would have been 50 years ago. But humanity hadn't spent the last 5 decades licking its wounds. They had rebuilt, reimagined, and reinvented themselves. Every defeat, every humiliation, every loss had been transformed into fuel for advancement. Launch probe squadrons, Chen commanded. Standard search pattern. Let's see what surprises they've prepared for us. Hundreds of automated probes streaked ahead of the fleet, their advanced sensors probing every cubic kilometer of space around the station. Data streamed back, building a comprehensive picture of the battlefield to come. Multiple defensive layers detected, Tactical Officer Weizhang reported. Energy shields, point defense arrays, missile platforms. They've significantly upgraded the station's capabilities since our last intelligence update. Chen nodded, unsurprised. And yet they retreat. The mighty Zarkak's empire, running from the species they once called vermin. She stood from her command chair, addressing her bridge crew directly. They believed their technology made them invincible. They believed their history made them unbeatable. They never understood that true strength comes from adversity, from being knocked down and getting back up again. The tactical display showed their fleet closing in on optimal engagement range. The Nexus Station loomed ahead, its massive form bristling with weapons. Surrounding it, the remnants of the Zarkak's fleet took up defensive positions. Message from the station, Tanaka reported. They're requesting to open diplomatic channels. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. This was the moment that would define the mission, and perhaps humanity's future in the galaxy. The Zarkax had never negotiated with lesser species before. Their request for diplomacy now spoke volumes about how far they had fallen, and how far humanity had risen. "Put it through to my private channel," Chen ordered. "But maintain battle readiness. We've learned the hard way not to trust their promises." As she sat back in her command chair, Chen thought about all the souls lost in the first strike, about the years of rebuilding in secret, of advancing human technology while letting the Empire believe they had been thoroughly subjugated, about the look of shock on the faces of Zarkax commanders when they realized their primitive opponents had developed countermeasures to their most advanced weapons. The communication request blinked on her display. With a steady hand, Commander Sarah Chen reached out to accept it, prepared to hear what the mighty Zarkax Empire had to say now that the tables had turned. Whether their words would change anything remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: humanity would never be underestimated again. As Commander Chen waited for the diplomatic channel to open, memories of the past 50 years flooded through her mind. She had been just a child during first contact, watching with millions of others as the massive Zarkax ships descended from the clouds above Shanghai. The aliens had appeared as gods then, their crystalline vessels gleaming in the sunlight, their technology so far beyond human understanding that it seemed magical. The diplomatic feed crackled to life, pulling her back to the present. On her private screen, a Zarkax High Counselor appeared, their iridescent scales dulled with age, multiple eyes blinking in rapid succession. Chen recognized the markings of the House of Kithal, one of the oldest noble lines in the Empire. "Commander," the counselor began, their translator converting complex harmonic tones into human speech, "we wish to discuss terms." Chen's hand unconsciously touched the scar along her neck, a reminder of the day everything changed. "Like you discussed terms with us 50 years ago, counselor." The alien scales rippled in what Chen had learned was discomfort. "The past cannot be changed, but the future." "The future," Chen interrupted, "was decided the day your ships opened fire on our cities." She closed her eyes, remembering. It had happened exactly 6 months after first contact. 6 months of sharing technology, of cultural exchange, of what humanity believed was the beginning of a grand alliance. The Zarkax had seemed so benevolent, offering medical advances that cured dozens of human diseases, providing clean energy solutions, helping to establish the first Mars colony. No one suspected they were simply studying humanity's weaknesses. "Commander," Lieutenant Rivera's voice cut through her memories. Multiple ships decloaking around the Nexus station. Chen's eyes snapped open. Full tactical display. The holographic projection expanded, showing dozens of Zarkax vessels appearing from quantum concealment. But something was wrong with their formation. They were scattered, disorganized, some of them showing signs of recent battle damage. "Those ships," Jean reported from Tactical, "they're refugees from the Outer Rim. Civilian vessels mixed with military escorts. They're fleeing from our advance in the colonial sectors." The counselor's image flickered as more ships appeared. "You see, Commander, your forces have already displaced millions. How many more must suffer before?" "Before what?" Chen's voice was ice. "Before we accept another false peace. Before we trust the empire that murdered billions of our people without warning." She stood, addressing the counselor directly. "We remember the hospitals you bombed first, the schools, the civilian centers. You didn't want a quick military victory. You wanted to break us. 50 years ago, the Zarkax had believed their attack would force humanity to surrender immediately. Instead, they had created something unprecedented, a unified Earth, driven by a single purpose. While the Empire believed they had successfully subjugated a broken species, humanity went underground. Cities were rebuilt beneath the surface. New technologies were developed in secret facilities deep within the Moon and Mars. Most importantly, humans learned. They studied every scrap of Zarkak's technology they could salvage. They analyzed the Empire's tactics, their weaknesses, their assumptions about warfare. And they planned. The Empire has changed, the counselor insisted. The old guard has been replaced. We recognize our ancestors' mistakes. Tactical. Chen cut off the plea. What's the status of those refugee ships? Zhang consulted his displays. Many are damaged, Commander. Life support systems failing on at least 3 vessels. They're requesting emergency assistance. Chen felt the weight of command settle onto her shoulders. This was the difference between humanity and the Empire, the difference they had fought to preserve. Deploy medical ships to assist the civilian vessels, she ordered, but maintain combat readiness with the military escorts. The counselor's multiple eyes widened in surprise. You would help them. Unlike the Empire, Chen replied, we haven't forgotten who we are. Humanity's strength isn't in our weapons or our technology. It's in our ability to remember our humanity, even in our darkest moments. She leaned forward. But make no mistake, Counselor, we also remember every detail of what your Empire did to us. And we will not stop until justice is served. On the tactical display, Earth's medical ships moved to assist the failing refugee vessels. Meanwhile, the rest of the fleet maintained its advance toward the Nexus station, weapons primed and shields at maximum power. You have 1 hour, Chen informed the counselor. 1 hour to evacuate all civilian personnel from the Nexus station. After that, we will demonstrate that humanity has learned to use the Empire's gifts in ways you never imagined. The counselor's scales shifted through patterns of fear and resignation. They knew, as Chen did, that this was not a negotiation. It was a courtesy that the Empire had never extended to Earth. As the diplomatic channel closed, Chen returned to her command chair. The next hour would reveal whether the Empire had truly learned anything from its greatest mistake, or if pride would once again be its downfall. All ships, she commanded, prepare for battle stations. The real test begins now. The evacuation of the Nexus station had begun, but Commander Chen knew better than to trust the Empire's apparent cooperation. She watched the streams of escape pods and transport vessels through the Vindication's quantum-enhanced sensors, each departure monitored for signs of subterfuge. Interesting readings from the station's core, John reported, his fingers dancing across his console. They're transferring massive amounts of power to their central systems. Show me, Chen ordered. The tactical display shifted, revealing the station's power distribution network. Energy surged through conduits in patterns she'd never seen before, converging on something at the heart of the massive structure. Commander, Tanaka called out urgently, I'm intercepting internal communications from the station. There's fighting breaking out between different Imperial factions. The tactical display updated again, showing weapons fire within the station itself. Through the quantum feeds, Chen could see Zarkak's troops exchanging plasma bursts in the corridors, their crystalline armor shattering under impact. Multiple diplomatic channels opening, Tanaka continued. They're all claiming to speak for different Imperial authorities. Chen's lips tightened, put them through to the main screen. Let's hear what they have to say. The bridge's primary display split into several sections, each showing a different Zarkak's official. Their scales rippled with varying patterns of agitation and fear as they spoke over one another. The station must be preserved. Deploy the legacy weapon. We cannot risk. The humans must be. Silence. Chen's command cut through the chaos. The Zarkak's officials fell quiet, their ancient pride warring with their desperate situation. One at a time. You first. She pointed to an elderly Zarkak wearing the insignia of the Science Directory. Commander, the scientist began, their translator struggling to convey the complexity of their tonal language. There are weapons aboard this station that must not be used. Weapons that could tear reality itself apart. The military directorate plans to deploy them rather than accept defeat. Another official, bearing military markings, burst in. Traitor, you would reveal our last defense to these primitives. These primitives, as you call them, the scientist retorted, have already surpassed our understanding of quantum mechanics. They took our basic teachings and evolved them into technologies we barely comprehend. If you deploy the legacy weapons, they'll only learn to counter them. And then what will we have left? Chen listened to the argument with growing concern. She had studied the Empire's history extensively, including rumors of experimental weapons developed during their early expansion era, weapons so dangerous they had been banned by the Empire's own laws. "Lieutenant Rivera," she called out, "what's the status of the civilian evacuation?" 87% complete, Commander, but we're detecting increased power fluctuations from the station's core. Whatever they're planning, they're close to implementing it. Chen stood from her command chair, addressing all the Zarkax officials simultaneously. "Listen carefully. We've detected your power buildup. We know about the legacy weapons. If you deploy them, we will respond with everything we have. And unlike you, we've spent 50 years preparing specifically for this conflict. You dare threaten us?" The military official snarled. "We ruled the stars when your species was still living in caves. And now you're ready to tear apart reality itself rather than accept that times have changed." Chen replied coldly. "This is why your empire is falling, not because of our weapons or tactics, but because you cannot adapt, cannot accept that the universe is larger than your pride." Suddenly, alerts blared across the bridge. "Commander," Zhang shouted, "massive energy spike from the station's core. They're initiating something." Chen's decision was instant. "All ships, execute Protocol Omega. Now." The Earth Fleet's formation shifted with practiced precision. Quantum fields synchronized across hundreds of vessels, creating a complex web of interlocking force patterns. It was a defense that had taken decades to perfect, based on principles the Empire had never considered possible. The Nexus Station's core erupted with impossible energies. Space itself seemed to twist and bend as the legacy weapon activated. Reality shuddered as forces meant to remain theoretical were unleashed. But the human fleet held firm. Their quantum fields absorbed, redirected, and nullified the dimensional assault. The Empire's ultimate weapon spent itself against humanity's preparation, achieving nothing but the further depletion of the station's power reserves. In the silence that followed, Chen addressed the stunned Zarkax officials. "That was your last mistake. We knew about the legacy weapons. We knew how they worked. And we knew you would eventually become desperate enough to use them." She turned to her crew. "All ships, battle formations. The station's defenses are depleted. Let's show them what humanity has learned about quantum warfare." "Wait," the scientist called out. "Please, the station's containment systems are failing. The core breach could destroy everything within this sector." Chen's expression remained resolute. "Then I suggest you focus on saving lives rather than your empire's pride. You have 15 minutes to complete the evacuation. After that, we will end this, one way or another." As the diplomatic channels closed, Chen watched the continued stream of escape pods leaving the station. The Empire's greatest military installation was about to fall, not through overwhelming force, but through their own inability to accept change. "All ships," she commanded, "prepare for final assault." The Empire made their choice 50 years ago. Now they'll face the consequences. The final minutes of evacuation ticked away as Commander Chen watched the Nexus Station's power core continue its desperate struggle for stability. Emergency pods streamed from its massive frame like tears from a dying giant, each one carrying the remnants of an empire that had never imagined this moment could come. "Evacuation status?" Chen asked, her voice steady despite the weight of what was to come. 98% complete, Rivera reported. "But Commander, we're detecting multiple signatures refusing to leave the station, including most of the military directorate." Chen nodded slowly. She had expected this. The Empire's military leadership had always chosen death over dishonor. And the civilian evacuation? Complete. Medical ships report all refugee vessels are secure and at safe distance. Very well. Chen stood, addressing her bridge crew. Initiate final approach. All ships. Execute battle plan Thermopylae. The Earth fleet moved with practiced precision, breaking into 3 distinct formations. Each group took up positions that, to Imperial tactical doctrine, would appear to leave critical vulnerabilities. But humanity had long since learned to think beyond Imperial doctrine. Multiple energy spikes from the station, Zhang called out. They're activating everything they have left. The space around the Nexus station lit up with desperate fury. Plasma beams, quantum torpedoes, and gravity lances, the full might of Imperial military technology, poured forth in a dazzling display of destructive power. But the human fleet was ready. 50 years of preparation had taught them not just how to survive such an assault, but how to turn it against its users. Execute countermeasures, Chen ordered calmly. Quantum shields flickered and transformed, their frequencies shifting in patterns that the Empire's targeting systems couldn't track. Defensive fields bent and redirected energy weapons back toward their sources. Human ships seemed to dance through the storm of fire, each movement calculated decades in advance. Station's outer defenses are failing, Zhang reported. But their core, Commander, they're attempting something unprecedented. The readings suggest they're trying to merge their quantum matrices. Chen's eyes narrowed. Show me. The tactical display revealed the desperate gamble. The station's remaining leaders were attempting to combine their defensive systems in ways their own engineers had deemed impossible. It was exactly the kind of adaptation that might have saved their empire if they had learned it 50 years earlier. They're learning, Chen observed quietly. Finally learning. But too late. She straightened in her command chair. All ships, execute final phase. Show them what real innovation looks like. The human fleet's 3 formations suddenly began to move in ways that defied conventional space combat tactics. Ships linked their quantum fields in harmonious patterns, creating cascading resonance effects that the Empire's sensors couldn't even detect, let alone counter. Energy sync at maximum, Rivera announced. Ready for dimensional cascade. Chen took a deep breath. This was the moment that would demonstrate just how far humanity had come. Execute. The linked human ships created something entirely new, a quantum phenomenon that the Empire's greatest scientists had never imagined possible. Space itself seemed to fold and ripple around the Nexus station as multiple dimensions intersected precisely where human tacticians had calculated they would. The station's desperate defenders watched in horror as their mighty fortress began to tear itself apart, not through brute force, but through the elegant application of physics they didn't understand. Commander, Tanaka called out urgently, we're receiving a final transmission from the station's command center. Put it through. The face that appeared on screen was the same military official who had threatened to use the legacy weapons. But now their scales showed patterns of something Chen had never seen before in his Arcax. Awe. How? They asked simply. How did you surpass us so quickly? Chen's response was measured, each word carrying the weight of 50 years of human determination. We had excellent teachers. You showed us what was possible, then gave us every reason to exceed those possibilities. Your greatest mistake wasn't attacking Earth. It was assuming we couldn't learn from that attack. The station's superstructure continued to collapse around the official, but they remained at their post. Then we were wrong about everything. About you. About what makes a species truly advanced. Yes, Chen agreed. You were. The transmission cut off as the station's final systems failed. The massive structure that had stood as a symbol of imperial power for centuries crumbled into dimensional space, leaving behind only debris and the echo of an empire's hubris. All ships, stand down from battle stations, Chen ordered. Begin recovery operations for any remaining escape pods. She turned to her communications officer. Tanaka, prepare a message to Fleet Command. The Nexus station is neutralized. As her crew carried out their orders, Chen watched the field of debris through the main viewport. Humanity had won this battle not through superior firepower or brute force, but through patience, adaptation, and the relentless drive to overcome their limitations. "Commander," Rivera spoke up, "we're receiving updates from other sectors. With the fall of the Nexus station, the Empire's remaining forces are surrendering across multiple systems." Chen nodded slowly. "They finally understand. Send word to all sectors. Accept their surrender. Treat their civilians with respect, but maintain combat readiness. The war isn't over until we've secured everything they took from us." The stars seemed to shine brighter as humanity's fleet began its recovery operations. The Empire had taught humanity reach for the stars. Now they would learn what humanity could achieve once it got there. 3 months after the fall of Nexus Station, Commander Sarah Chen stood before the grand windows of Earth's newly constructed Galactic Assembly. Below, the sprawling city of New Shanghai gleamed in the morning sun, its quantum-enhanced towers reaching toward the sky like fingers of hope. The scars of the first strike had long since been erased, replaced by monuments to human resilience. "The reports from the Outer Rim are confirmed," Lieutenant Rivera said, approaching with a data tablet. Even after their victory, he maintained the crisp efficiency that had served them so well during the war. "The last Imperial holdouts have surrendered. The Empire, it's officially over." Chen accepted the tablet, scanning the information with practiced ease. The collapse had been faster than anyone expected. Once the Nexus station fell, the Empire's remaining power structure had crumbled like a house of cards. But it wasn't the military victory that occupied her thoughts now. "And the refugee situation?" she asked. "Stabilizing. The resettlement programs are proceeding ahead of schedule. Most surprising is the number of former Imperial citizens requesting permission to study at Earth universities. They're particularly interested in our quantum physics programs." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Of course they are. Nothing drives scientific curiosity quite like watching your supposedly superior technology get outperformed by primitives." The doors behind them slid open with a soft hiss. Admiral Patel, the architect of Earth's long-term strategy against the Empire, entered with several alien dignitaries, not just Zarkax, but representatives from other species that had lived under Imperial rule. "Commander Chen," Patel called out warmly, "the Alliance Council is ready for your report." Chen nodded, following them into the assembly chamber. The vast room, with its hovering platforms and quantum communication arrays, represented everything humanity had achieved. Representatives from 100 formerly subjugated species filled the seats, their diversity a stark contrast to the Empire's rigid hierarchy. Taking her place at the podium, Chen faced the gathered assembly. The words she would speak here would help shape the galaxy's future. "Distinguished representatives," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. 3 months ago, humanity delivered the final blow to an empire that had dominated this galaxy for millennia. Today, I'm here to ensure we don't repeat their mistakes." She gestured to the holographic display behind her, showing the current state of former Imperial space. "The Empire fell not because our weapons were stronger, but because they failed to understand a fundamental truth. True strength lies not in domination, but in adaptation. Not in pride, but in the willingness to learn and grow." The assembly listened intently as Chen continued. "We've all seen the cost of Imperial ambition. Earth remembers the billions we lost to their pride. Every species represented here has similar stories, but today we have a choice. We can seek revenge, or we can build something new." She touched a control, and the display shifted to show the new trade routes and diplomatic connections already forming between formerly isolated worlds. "Humanity spent 50 years preparing for war, yes, but we also prepared for peace. The technology we developed to defeat the Empire can now be used to help rebuild. Our quantum engineering can heal shattered worlds. Our dimensional physics can revolutionize transportation and communication." A Zarkax representative raised their hand, one of the younger generation, their scales showing patterns of cautious hope. "And what of my people? There are many who fear you will treat us as we once treated you." Chen's response was immediate and firm. Fear is what drove the Empire to attack Earth. Fear of being surpassed, fear of change, fear of losing control. We won't repeat that cycle. Your people's knowledge, combined with human innovation, could transform this galaxy, but only if we move forward together, as equals. The chamber erupted in discussion, representatives from various species sharing their views on this new vision. Chen watched them with quiet satisfaction. Already, she could see new alliances forming, new possibilities being explored. Admiral Patel stepped up beside her. "Quite a change from 50 years ago," he observed. "Did you ever imagine, when you were watching those ships descend over Shanghai, that it would lead to this?" Chen shook her head. "No. Back then, I only saw the end of our world. I never dreamed it would lead to the beginning of a new one." She paused, watching a group of young Zarkax engineers eagerly discussing quantum theory with human scientists. "But that's the difference between us and the Empire. They saw the galaxy as something to control. We see it as something to explore." As the assembly continued their deliberations, Chen's gaze drifted to the windows, where Earth's defense fleet held position against the star-filled sky. The ships were still ready, still vigilant. Humanity had learned that lesson well. But their primary mission had changed. They were no longer weapons of vengeance, but guardians of a new era. "The Empire taught us to reach for the stars," Chen mused, echoing her thoughts from the final battle. "Now we'll teach the galaxy how to reach them together." Outside, the sun rose higher over New Shanghai, its light reflecting off the quantum-enhanced towers and the ships above. Humanity had survived its trial by fire, emerged stronger, and now faced a future filled with possibilities that even their conquered conquerors had never imagined. The age of empire was over. The age of exploration was about to begin.